This game is Hallux Rigidus. It says Game 3 in the first chronicle of Hallux Rigidus Saga. And on the side here, it says, the game that should not have been named, but was. Now we're going to just look and see what's inside of the box. The first thing is the game board. It looks like it's the city of Hallux Rigidus. You've got buildings which represent places, blank spots which maybe represent sidewalks, a road that goes through town, and a river that goes through town, and they have a crossways there. As far as the game goes, you're not allowed to cross the river except by the bridge. So whenever you're over in this area of town, in order to get this area, if you're up here, you have to travel all the way down here across the bridge to get over there. So there is some that requires some special maneuvering to get around the board. Alright, so that's the game board. Now the second thing we should look at then is the evidence tiles. And we'll use the board to show these ones because they're in relation to the board. So the way these work, you got all these evidence, and you need to have them revealed at the beginning of the game. So you turn them all over so you can see them all, like so. Then you separate the places or the buildings from the people, like so. And they're color-coded to make it easier. And then you turn them back over in their separate piles, like so. And then you shift them around, and you shift this one around, and then you pick one from each without anybody looking at them, and you set them aside where nobody can see them. Then you take the remainder, and you shift them up so they're all mixed up together. And then, if you see these spaces on the board here, this is the warehouse, and it's got a letter K on it, and over here you've got the Historic Society, and it's got a letter C on it. And right here is the post office with a letter D on it. So all the ones that have letters on it, you place these evidence tiles on each of those. Like so. Now when that's completed, as far as the gameplay goes, you maneuver through the city looking for evidence, which happens to be these ones. And when you, where's the last letter? So, in order to know where you've traveled, that's what the letters are for. So we'll show you the evidence. This is called the character growth chart. Down here is where you have your evidence, where you track what you found. And this is the growth of your character. So as your character travels through the game, he learns different abilities. You face abominations, and the abominations, if you overcome them, you gain experience, which are what these are. And when you fill in each section, you gain a level, and a level comes with some benefit. In some cases, you draw a skill card, giving yourself more abilities to manipulate the game. You also get to have your persona right here become more powerful, so you can face more powerful abominations successfully. And so you've got a maximum of 6 levels that you can attain. I don't know how many levels you actually attain in the game, but that's the theory. You're also combating against sanity. So when you face an abomination, sometimes succeed or fail, you lose some sanity. And then eventually, when you get to 0 sanity, you go insane. And there's things that occur after the character goes insane. So, but for this part, I'm showing you this because when you get this, the first thing you do is you fold that back so you're not sharing your evidence with other players. And so when you find evidence, you'll turn this over and not show it to anybody. And this is your evidence. And so if you go here and you turn this over, you look at it, blam! And you'll see that it's the graveyard. You don't want to show it to any other players, but I want to show it to you. and the letter on the space is N. So then you place this back down so nobody can see it. Yeah. And then you find graveyard on the list, which happens to be right here. And in this box next to the graveyard, you would put the letter N. This is important because you need to know where you have been. If you don't put a letter N in there, then you could be halfway done with the game and then not remember that you actually looked at that one. But all you need to do when you're not sure what you've seen, you go look at the letters, which will tell you where you've been. So you look at the letter N. Look, there's a letter N. You'll know you've been there. You don't need to look there again because you've marked N here, knowing that that has been a place that you have visited. So that's how the evidence works with the character growth chart and the evidence stuff there and the board. And so these are things that you find in Hallux Rigidus. For now, we'll put these away and we'll show you the next components within this game. All right, we'll move this right out of the way. We don't need it anymore. All right, here's the characters of the game. These are the characters. I believe there's 10 of them. We've got the thespian, the professor, the gangster, the private investigator, the foreman, the burglar, the archaeologist, the lawyer, the copycat, and the news reporter. And what you would do is hold these out to each player, and they draw one at random. Kablam! And that person would be the foreman. Now, once you're an actual character, the foreman has a skill. This skill is the skill that they begin with, and it's completely unique to this character. So the skill that the foreman has is the foreman can alter the persona of a visitant class abomination by 1 point higher or lower when anyone is facing it. Okay, so the persona is here, and that's the power level of your character. The abominations also have a persona, which gives their power level. And this is what you need to overcome an abomination. So, in this case, this person can alter the persona by 1 point of a visitant class abomination, which could be good. Now, that doesn't matter whether he's facing or somebody else. So, he can make it tougher or easier for him or any other player facing it, depending on what he wants in that situation. Also on here, it tells you where they start. So the foreman starts in the warehouse. So you find the warehouse space on the board, you put your little meeple or token in there, and that's where your foreman would begin in the game. So that's the characters. Let's go on. Let's see here. All right, well, actually, let's pull that foreman back out so I can show you these. So these are skills. These are additional skills. And if you remember me showing you the character growth chart, one of the things that you can get when you level up is another skill. So you would draw a random skill here from the thing, and you'd plop it down next to your character, and this gives him a second skill. So he'll use the first one, but he gains a second one. And this one says, whenever another character looks at an evidence tile, you can immediately move to that location. You may not look at the evidence nor take any other action until your turn. So it's more or less a movement card. It's more or less letting you move around the board more quickly. You can't perform actions with that move, but you'll be there for the next turn if you want to stay there, because you don't have to move on your turn. So you can just start your turn in that space where you moved to. So that's what the skill cards are for. We can put them away, and we can put these guys away for now. Let's see. Well, I'll show you these quick, but I mean, ultimately, it's standard stuff for most games of this nature. And here you have your meeples and your dice. This game's a 1 to 6 player, so you've got 6 different colorful meeples there to run around the board, and your 6-sided dice, which you need to help you face abominations. And sometimes there are abilities that you need to overcome other player abilities in multiplayer games. Ultimately, this game has a solo mode, so those abilities wouldn't be useful in a solo mode, but any other number of playing, they would be useful. Now we're going to do the cards. There are, I believe, 4 decks in this card, besides the skill and the character cards. So we have the event cards. We'll do these ones first. This is the event card, and what these do are various events that happen in the game. This one is just an abomination, which means if you draw this card, it's going to direct you to draw from this deck right here, the abomination deck. And other things that can occur are events. So this is an event that happens at the warehouse. Most events have a description of what's going on, and then you roll the die, and odd or even, you have two options that can occur in those events. And so that's what you get out of the events. The events are drawn anytime you are in a building space during your turn. You'll draw an event card. I believe you can draw an event card at any time if you want to, but you're not required to. Except you cannot draw an event when you're in a sanctuary. Okay, the next ones are the abomination cards. So these ones were referred to by some of the event cards. These ones you have to use in order to gain levels in the game. These are abominations. There's various classes of abominations. This one's an enervate. This one's a trap. This one's an antediluvian. This one's a doggone. And here's a visitant class. And there's a deuce class. I think that's all of them. So you have several classes of abominations in here that do various things within the game. These ones make you go insane. In this one, you have the Moribund, which is an enervate class with a persona of 6. Well, when you start the game, you only have 2 persona, and then you roll the dice to try to beat that number. But you have to actually beat the number, which means if you start with a 2 persona, in order to beat, you have to roll a 5 or better, which would give you a 7. So at first, it's going to be difficult to beat these guys. You need to level up in order to make it a little more feasible. But I do know that if you roll a 6, it's considered a critical hit and an automatic win. So, and a 1, unfortunately, is also a critical fail, which is an automatic loss. So earlier in the game, when it's difficult to overcome these guys, you do have an automatic win with a roll of a 6. And then later in the game, when you're having an easier time overcoming them, a roll of a 1 will, throw a wrench in your cruising along, overcoming them ability. So these are the abominations. The next one we have here are phobias. These are wicked cards. In the game, I think I described that when you lose your sanity, you'll go insane, and you go to the asylum, and there you can get therapy and gain some of your phobia back, or some of your sanity back. But when you leave the asylum, you take a phobia, because they say once you're insane, a little bit of that insanity remains with you. And so you take a phobia that represents that small amount that's still sticking around. Phobias make it so you're going to lose sanity in various ways as you travel across the board. So some of these phobias are like this one, the hierophobia, fear of sacred things. It says you may not possess any holy relics. If you currently have any, discard them. Holy relics are special possessions. And so this one makes it so that you can't even have one because you're afraid of them. And we have numerophobia, fear of numbers. You lose 2 sanity each time a revealed card displays a number. Well, they don't always display a number, but they almost always do. And so more or less, every card that's drawn, you're going to lose 2 sanity, which sucks because you're also losing sanity every time you face an abomination. And player abilities can sometimes cause you to lose sanity also. So these are cards that just really wreak havoc on you. Once you've been insane once, then you're going to be carrying one of these with you pretty much the whole game in a variety of ways. And then the final deck is your possessions deck. So these are the possessions. The possessions are various items that usually help you in the game. Unfortunately, there are a few curses in here that don't help you in the game. You've got holy relics. These are considered items, but they're special items, and they do special things for you. And this one here is just an item class. Now, the reason they're specified by class is because you're only allowed to have 3 item class possessions, and you can only have 1 holy relic, but it does count towards the 3. So if you have a holy relic, you can only have 2 other item class And if you have none of these, then you can have, 3 of those. But you can never have 2 of these. So if you get another one of these, you can't take it. You got to decide which one you want out of the one you've got and the one you're about to take, and discard the other one. You also have vehicle class possessions. This one's the automobile. It gives you a big bump up on your movement. So this one says you can move up to 5 spaces now. Normally you can only move 2 spaces, but if you have the automobile, you can move 5. You can have 1 vehicle in your possession at any time, never more than 1, and it doesn't count against your item total. And then you have the curse. So you got curses in here, and these are nasty little buggers. This guy here makes it so you can't discard Hickle's Hypnotic Eye until you visit a sanctuary or go insane. While in possession of this artifact, your persona is 0. So more or less, it screws you over really good. I mean, if you're later in the game and your persona is like an 8, and you take this and suddenly you're at a 0, which is 2 points lower than the starting points, that's pretty sad. So these are the various items that you can get within the game. All right, there we go. Other than the rule book, there's nothing else. So, thank you for watching, and good night.